Look, we say this year is going to be huge all the time, right? But looking at the 2026 lineup, it's actually kind of ridiculous. I've been digging through the release list, and it feels like developers are finally figuring out how to really push the visuals. The lighting, the physics, some of this stuff honestly looks a little too real. We've got the massive franchises returning, obviously, but there are also a few indie games dropping this year that, well, they look terrifying. So, let's see what 2026 has for us. Let's get into it. Okay, first up, we have to talk about Ill. And honestly, we need to address the elephant in the room right away. For the last couple of years, every time this team posted a clip on Twitter, the comments were just full of people saying, fake, render, this isn't a real game. And I get it, the visuals look too good. But as we move into 2026, we finally have confirmation that not only is this real, but it has serious backing from Mundfish, the guys behind Atomic Heart, so the budget is actually there. If you've missed the hype train, this is a first-person survival horror game, but it's not just about jump scares. The main hook here is the physics. They built a system called Real-Time Advanced Dismemberment. It sounds gross, and it is, but it's actually tactical. In most games, if you shoot a zombie in the leg, it plays a canned animation, right? In Ill, the enemies react entirely based on physics. If you blast a monster's leg with a shotgun, the bone snaps, the weight shifts, and they stumble in a way that is unscripted and unpredictable. It makes every fight feel desperate and messy. And the team making this? They aren't just coders. These are visual effects artists who worked on movies like Longlegs and the IT prequels. That is why the monster designs look so disturbing. They literally come from a background of Hollywood body horror. You aren't a super soldier here either. The immersion is hardcore. You don't have a magical number floating on your screen telling you how many bullets you have left. You actually have to look at your weapon to see if the chamber is empty. It is easily the most visually impressive game on this list. If the final release lives up to the footage we've seen, this is going to be the new benchmark for the genre. Next up, we have the one everyone has been waiting for. This is Halloween. For years, we've seen Texas Chainsaw and Friday the 13th. But the king of slasher movies is finally getting his own dedicated game. And I'm not talking about a cheap cash grab. The developers are building a 1 versus 4 experience that is designed to be genuinely terrifying. The gameplay loop is pure cat and mouse. You have 4 survivors trying to escape Haddonfield versus 1 player controlling Michael Myers. But unlike other games where the killer runs around screaming, Michael is different. He is the Shape. He doesn't sprint, he stalks. The developers, working closely with John Carpenter, have built a system where Michael gets stronger the more he watches you from the shadows. As a survivor, you aren't just looking for a heartbeat radius. You are checking the windows, searching for car keys, and realizing he's already standing there. But here is the part that makes this special. It also has a single-player story mode. This isn't just a multiplayer match with bots. They are building a full narrative campaign where you play as Michael Myers. You get to relive the events of the original 1978 movie through his eyes, stalking victims, cutting phone lines, and planning your attacks in a proper story structure. So whether you want to scare your friends online or just play through the movie alone, this is finally the complete horror package we've been asking for. At number 3, we have Ontos. And if that name sounds mysterious, the studio behind it definitely isn't. This is the new major project from Frictional Games, the absolute masters of horror who gave us Amnesia and Soma. Now, usually their games are about hiding in a closet while a monster sniffs the door, but Ontos is evolving that formula. They are calling this a cerebral horror experience. Here is the setup. You are sent to Samsara, a luxury resort built on the moon that went dark 20 years ago. But when you get there, you aren't alone. The glitch in the station's AI hasn't just killed the crew, it has repurposed them. The gameplay loop is terrifying because you have 0 weapons. Frictional has confirmed they are bringing back the physics-based interactions from Amnesia: The Bunker, but this time it's about survival in a vacuum. You have to manage your oxygen, solve puzzles by manually rewiring heavy machinery, and avoid enemies that you can't even look at directly without losing your sanity. It's stressful, it's claustrophobic, and if the story is anything like Soma, it's going to leave us with an existential crisis for weeks. If you want a game that messes with your head instead of just throwing jump scares at you, this is the one. Next up, Directive 8020. This is a massive title because it kicks off Season 2 of the anthology, and Supermassive Games is using it to completely reinvent their formula. The game is set in the near future, where Earth is dying and humanity is running out of time. Our last hope is a colony ship called the Cassiopeia, which is sent 12 light-years away to a planet called Tau Ceti F. But when the ship crash lands, the crew realizes something is wrong. They are being hunted by an alien organism. But this isn't just a standard monster movie. The creature is a mimic. It hunts the crew, kills them, and then perfectly imitates them. The core tension of the game is paranoia. You do not just have to survive the harsh environment of the planet, you have to figure out if the person standing next to you is your loyal crewmate or an alien imposter waiting to strike. Mechanically, this is the biggest leap forward the series has ever taken. In previous Dark Pictures games, you were mostly watching a movie and pressing buttons for QuickTime events. In Directive 8020, they have added full, real-time gameplay. You now have to actively use stealth to hide from stalker enemies, navigate around threats, and use survival tools. You are equipped with things like a scanner to detect alien signals and a wedge tool to pry open doors or stun enemies in a pinch. Another major new feature is the turning points system. In the past, if you made a bad choice and killed a character, that was it. Now, the game gives you the option to rewind the timeline to specific key moments and try a different path. Of course, if you are a purist, you can play in Survivor mode where every death is permanent. The game was originally slated for late 2025, but it has been delayed to the first half of 2026 to ensure the polish is there. Next up, we have something that looks absolutely terrifying, and I mean that in the best way possible. This is Reanimal. Now, if you loved Little Nightmares, you need to keep your eyes on this one. It is being made by Tarsier Studios, the original creators of Little Nightmares 1 and 2. They moved on from that series to make this, and somehow they managed to make it even darker. The vibe here is just unsettling. You play as two orphan siblings, a brother and a sister, who have to go back to their old home island to rescue their friends. But the island has turned into a total hellscape, filled with these twisted, grotesque monsters that look like animal hybrids gone wrong. We have seen a few of them in the trailers, like this massive, bloated sheep creature called the Lamb, and another terrifying one called the Tailor. The design is just pure nightmare fuel. What makes this game unique is that it is built for co-op, but it doesn't use a split screen. It uses a shared camera. That means you and your friend are always stuck in the same frame, which makes everything feel way more claustrophobic because you can't just run off and do your own thing. You are trapped together. You aren't just running on foot either. You actually get a boat to explore different fragmented islands, which sounds nice until you see the giant things moving under the water. If you want a game that feels like a playable dark fairy tale, do not sleep on this one. Next up, we have The Sinking City 2, and judging by the trailers, this is a massive shift in tone. The first game was a bit of a cult hit, but it had its issues. The developers at Frogwares seem to know that, because from what they have shown us, they are pivoting hard into full survival horror. The most interesting mechanic they are teasing is the map itself. The city of Arkham looks like it is constantly flooding. In the gameplay snippets, you can see the water levels changing, which suggests we might be forced to use boats to navigate over areas that were previously dry, while monsters swim right underneath. And speaking of monsters, the creature designs in the trailers are genuinely disturbing. We have seen these slimy, Deep One-looking creatures swarming in packs, and some massive, twisted abominations that look like they have way too many limbs. It definitely looks like they are leaning into the body horror this time around. We also got a peek at the UI, and it looks like they are taking inspiration from the greats. The inventory system looks like a direct nod to Resident Evil 4's grid system, which implies we are going to be playing Tetris with our items and stressing over resource management. Another big confirmation from the devs is that the detective work is now optional. They said you don't have to solve every mystery to beat the game, but doing so will grant you upgrades. It sounds like a much smarter way to handle the pacing. It is currently targeting the first half of 2026. If the final game looks as atmospheric as the trailers, this could be a huge redemption arc for the series. Next up, we have one of the most terrifying announcements on this entire list. We are talking about Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revival. Now, horror fans have been begging for a good Hellraiser game for decades, and it looks like Saber Interactive is finally the studio to deliver it. First off, the biggest news, Doug Bradley is back. That's right, the original Pinhead is voicing the character, which instantly makes this legit. Just hearing his voice in the teaser trailer was enough to give everyone chills. The setup sounds incredible too. You play as a biker named Aiden Lynch. He is trying to save his girlfriend from the Cenobites, but to do that, he has to wield the Genesis configuration. That is the puzzle box. But it is not just a key, it is your weapon. The devs are teasing that you can use the box to cast telekinetic attacks, ripping enemies apart with chains, or manipulating the environment to block paths. But because this is survival horror, you are also using earthly weapons like pipes, bats, and old revolvers. But here's the catch, they break. The durability system looks brutal, meaning you are going to be scrambling for a new weapon while a chatterer is sprinting at you down a hallway. Visually, they are not holding back on the gore. The body horror looks absolutely disgusting, with flesh tearing, hooks, and chains rendered in way too much detail. It captures that gritty, industrial nightmare vibe of the original 1987 movie perfectly. If you have the stomach for it, this could be the scariest game on the horizon. Next up, we have something that looks genuinely disturbing, and it is coming from Blumhouse Games. This is Chrysal, Theater of Idols. Now, if you are tired of the same old horror settings, this one is going to grab you. It is set in a twisted nightmare version of Spain called Tormentosa, and the vibe? It is basically BioShock meets Resident Evil Village, but steeped in creepy Spanish folklore. But the thing that makes this game unique is the combat mechanic. The devs have built the whole game around one terrifying rule. Your blood is your ammo. When you reload your weapon, you aren't just putting in a clip. The gun actually jabs needles into your hand and drains your own health to fill the chamber. It creates this constant, stressful balance where every shot you take brings you closer to death. And to heal, you have to drain the blood from the enemies you just killed. And speaking of enemies, these things are nightmare fuel. We are talking about porcelain dolls, weeping statues of saints that come to life, and this giant, unkillable stalker called Dolores. She looks like a corrupted version of a religious icon, and she hunts you through the streets while you are frantically trying to manage your blood levels. It looks stylish, it looks gross, and it is dropping in early 2026. If you want a horror game that actually tries something new with its mechanics, this is the one to watch. Next up, we are diving deep into the madness with The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. Now, usually when we talk about Lovecraft games, we think of dark, rainy cities or creepy fishing villages. But the developers at Ace Team are doing something completely different. They are dropping us into a cursed, sun-drenched jungle. The concept here is fascinating. It is a 4-player co-op survival game, but it is not just about shooting monsters, it is about trust. The jungle is filled with ancient forces that mess with your head. The big hook is the hallucination system. As you go deeper into the jungle, the game starts lying to you. You might see a monster charging at you, but it is actually just your teammate trying to heal you, or maybe it is a monster? You literally cannot trust your own eyes. The gameplay loop sounds intense too. You start on your ship, a galleon, where you stock up on weapons and gear. Then, you venture into the thick of it to find this legendary underground city. You have to search every corner for resources, keeping your eyes peeled for traps, all while friendly fire is turned on. So picture this. You are low on health, you are freaking out, and you see a demon running at you. Do you shoot? If you do, you might just kill your best friend. It creates this constant state of panic that most co-op games just don't have. It is targeting a summer 2026 release. If you want a co-op game that will probably ruin your friendships, this is the one. Next up, we have a horror game that feels like Constantine meets Silent Hill. This is The Occultist. Now, usually indie horror games have, let's say, okay voice acting, but not this one. The main character, Alan Rebels, is voiced by Doug Cockle. That is Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher. Hearing his gritty voice in a horror setting instantly makes this feel like a AAA production. The setup is classic but effective. You are traveling to a cursed island called Godstone to find your missing father. The place was run by a macabre cult until 1950, and now it is just filled with restless spirits and frozen souls. But the gameplay is where it gets interesting. There are no guns here. You can't just blast your way out. Your only weapon is a mystic pendulum. from. The developers are building the entire game around this thing. It has 5 different mechanics. You use it to move objects telekinetically, reveal hidden paths that normal eyes can't see, and even communicate with the dead. It looks like a really cool twist on the usual walking simulator formula, because you are actively manipulating the world to survive. Since there is no combat, it is all about stealth. You have to hide from these terrifying, twisted entities while solving puzzles to uncover what the cult did to the island. If you want a horror game that is less about jump scares and more about occult detective work, keep this on your radar. Next up, we have Liminal Point. Now, looking at the gameplay, you might think this is an action RPG like Diablo because of the camera angle, but it's actually a straight-up survival horror game, just from a top-down view. You play as Lyra, who is a former rock star from a band called the Fallen Fairies. She gets a voicemail from her missing bandmate and goes back to this foggy island called Ashen Point to find her. The cool thing about the isometric view is how they use it to mess with you. The developers, Hideworks, added this line of sight mechanic where you literally cannot see around corners until your character physically walks there. So even though you have a bird's eye view, you still have no idea what is waiting in the next hallway until you are right on top of it. The inventory system is straight out of the 90s. It is that classic grid-based management. You have to figure out how to fit a shotgun, which takes up like 4 slots, alongside your health drinks and keys. You will definitely spend time just rearranging your backpack while trying not to panic. You are exploring all the classic creepy spots: an abandoned mansion, a hospital, sewers, and you have to use your map constantly to plan your routes, because backtracking is a huge part of the game. If you like Signalis or the old-school Resident Evil games, but want something with a different perspective, this is definitely one to watch. Next up, we have a legend returning from the dead. This is Fatal Frame 2: Crimson Butterfly Remake. If you played the original on PS2, you know this is widely considered one of the scariest games ever made. And honestly, seeing it with these new graphics is genuinely unsettling. The story is still the classic tragedy. You play as twin sisters, Mio and Mayu, who get lost in a dark, cursed forest and stumble into the lost village. The place is abandoned, covered in eternal night, and filled with the ghosts of a failed ritual. But the developers, Koei Tecmo, aren't just updating the textures. They are adding brand new mechanics that actually change how you play. The biggest one is the Hold Hands system. You can now physically hold your sister Mayu's hand while exploring. Doing this actually restores your health and spirit power, which is a cool way to make you want to protect her. But there is a catch. If you are running from a ghost and Mayu trips, you have to stop and help her up, which creates these incredibly stressful moments where you are frantically trying to save her before a ghost grabs you. The combat is also getting an overhaul. The camera obscura, your only weapon, now has new lenses and a proper zoom function. The trailers show a new interface for the Fatal Frame shots, making it look much tighter and more responsive than the old games. If you want a horror game that is purely about atmosphere, dread, and Japanese folklore, this is the one.
Hello?
It hasn't been easy. But after much effort, here we finally are.
Who are you?
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
And finally, we have arrived at the big one. This is Resident Evil 9 Requiem. We are finally getting the dual protagonist setup we have been waiting for, and the contrast between them is insane. First, Leon S. Kennedy is back, but he is older, grittier, and honestly, kinda scary. His combat is absolutely brutal this time around. He has new execution moves using a tomahawk, and you can even pick up enemy weapons, like chainsaws, and use them right back on the monsters. It is pure chaos. Then, on the other side, you have Grace Ashcroft. She is an FBI analyst, and her sections are a totally different game. While Leon is action-heavy, Grace is pure old-school horror. She has limited ammo, she is sneaking through tight corridors, and she has to rely on stealth because she can't just blast her way out. But the biggest change is the open world. We are actually getting a massive open city environment to explore. You can drive vehicles to get around, find side objectives, and deal with dynamic events that happen randomly while you play. And the enemies? They are genuinely disturbing. The new zombies aren't just mindless eaters. They retain some of their human memories. You will walk into a room and see a monster trying to clean a floor or mumbling to itself right before it snaps and attacks you. Plus, there is a new blood crafting system where you extract blood from enemies to create special injectors and buffs. This is shaping up to be the biggest and most ambitious Resident Evil game ever made.